And welcome back, scruffy-headed nerd herders. We've been on quite the hiatus for the last couple of weeks. One of us nerds just spawned a newborn. Congratulations, Patrick.
Thank you. Thank you.
Off
And of course, his name is Finn. I'll thank Mr. John Boyega for that one. Couldn't just swing Obi-Wan, so Finn it is.
Or Ben.
I assume Darth Vader wasn't on the table either.
That's a little too dark.
Congratulations, Patrick, for becoming a Faja. And yeah, so now we have one more nerd to the fan base. Callan, get us started. What are we talking about?
So we're going to be talking about Zack Snyder's Justice League. The dream we've all been waiting for has arrived. And we're joined by our good friend Matt, who's probably one of the biggest DC nerds that I know. So welcome, Matt. Thanks for coming on. We're going to get into Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then we're going to wrap it up with our thoughts on WandaVision, since we haven't been able to get that out of the way. So on to Justice League. How about we start with our guest, Matt? What did you think of Justice League? Did it meet your expectations? Did it falter on any points for you? Just your general thoughts, your overall review. Take it away, my friend.
So it definitely met all my expectations and more. I'm one of the few people who loves long movies. The longer, the better. I watched the original earlier the week, and then, like most people, then I went ahead and binge watched the Snyder cut, and it certainly met all those expectations. It's got a lot of trademark Snyderisms in there, like copious amounts of slow-mo, which I know not everyone's a fan of, but I personally love it. It definitely was a lot more story-driven. There was less humor in it, but the humor that was in it was the stuff that I liked already. So I was happy with it. Like the I'm rich line, loved it. I was super glad that they kept that in there. I liked that the costumes and armors were toned down color scheme-wise. Flash wasn't so poppy in terms of like a cherry red Iron Man armor, whereas Superman, obviously the big takeaway is that he's in finally the black and silver suit, which is what we've all been clamoring for. From a tone perspective, it was incredible. The storytelling was so much better. Justice League, as I've been calling it, was definitely a big letdown. So this was a nice palate cleanser. Was full of action. It was really great. Batman didn't look like a second-rate hero who couldn't do anything. He was definitely taking everybody to task, and he was really, making sure he was a key player. Cyborg was a huge change in direction of character, which was awesome to see. He's a character that has gotten a lot of animated screen time, but not a lot of live action screen time, which was huge for me, especially because he pushes the narrative forward for minorities in major media, which is huge. Other characters that came into play that weren't originally in it, which had a lot of setup, were characters like Ryan Choi, he was in there, which is pushing, again, the envelope for minorities. And Gal Gadot, obviously, is a huge one for Israelis. So that was huge. So really bringing those characters and making them a bigger part of the story, because Wonder Woman was in there. And obviously she's one of the Trinity, but her and her intelligence and her fighting skill really came to the forefront, instead of her just doing big leaps and swinging her sword and shield. Like, there was a real intelligence driven part where she actually brought the story more forward than she did before. Same thing with Cyborg. Everything was kind of based around originally Batman being the central storyteller and really pushing the narrative, whereas they took all the smaller characters and really pushed them forward, which was a nice change of pace, and the pacing was better. I was a little disappointed by a couple things, like they took out the Batman 1989 soundtrack from it, which I don't know if anyone else caught. I mean, overall, out of 10, I would give it a 9 out of 10. It wasn't a movie, it was a piece of cinema. So if you go in there expecting to see a bunch of superhero fighting, Avengers-y type stuff, you'll be probably disappointed. But if you go in with the idea of looking at story and knowing how movies are made, it was beautiful. I loved it. Every second of it, I loved it. And I watched it twice. It's awesome.
That's a hell of a time commitment, twice.
Same. It really is, dude. That's a whole shift right there. Personally, I loved it. It was like distinctive in separating what a superhero movie and a comic book movie is. And I gotta say that this instantly became my favorite comic book movie. Throughout watching it, I felt like I was looking at a live action comic book. The 6 parts, the epilogue at the end, the way that every part was like a different story that like was cumulative to like the ending, a completely different structure and format compared to the original. Yeah, that original was horrible. Like I remember I watched it probably like 2-3 times since it first came out, and just have never really liked it. And like the cinematography was horrible, the CGI obviously horrible, and nothing made sense. But this one, literally, there was no footage of Joss Whedon's. Zack Snyder did all his original stuff and his original storyboards that he had for it originally. And I just thought he hit the mark on everything, because now we got to those points in the original where it didn't make sense. Like, how did Aquaman get his trident and his suit, and where the fuck did he come from? What's Wonder Woman's status right now? The biggest thing for me was Cyborg and Flash's redemption. Cyborg, you actually got to see him as a character. Like, he was very robotic in the first one. Like, that's all he was. But this one, it showed his humanity, or what he has left of it, and just his struggle. And it made him like a key part of the team. I love how Flash wasn't a bitch in this one. Like in the original one, it was like, I was like, whose Barry Allen is this? Like, he's never been so timid or unsure. Like, even when he got his powers, he was always down to fight. But like this one, I like how he was still getting his stuff figured out, but he was still kicking ass. And I like how they had the little hints of like his time travel, which was a huge part of it. Spoiler alert, everyone. But obviously from the dialogue of it, this wasn't his first time using it or doing it. So I like how it kind of is like leaving some breadcrumbs for the Flash movie. And obviously we know they're all going to do the Flashpoint storyline. So I think they're setting up for some crazy stuff here. Maybe we won't get a Justice League 2. At this point, I feel like the Flash movie is exactly what you would need to alter that future for DC, whether they have Zack Snyder or not. Hopefully they do. But out of this, I feel like we definitely need a Man of Steel 2 and a Cyborg movie. Batman and Superman really got their full justice in this one. I love how we didn't see the CGI mustache again, and how Superman was actually a badass. I like how they fleshed out more of his like resurrection and how confused he would be. Of course, like the lowest part. And then I really like how they brought Darkseid into it, how he's kind of like a genius sorcerer, world dominator. I got a lot of MCU feels to it. Like when it comes down to it, these are all the same stories. Like I feel like as much as this brought me back to DC, I feel like they can't stray too far from what Marvel's doing. Because look, we got another big bad who is dominating planets so he can control life or save it in his terminology. And then time travel is the only way to stop it. So like it kind of made it like I was like, okay, Justice League, this is essentially just Infinity War. Like they didn't really do anything different for me, especially now that we got Doctor Strange 2 into the multiverse, and then DC's all about their multiverse. It's just the same shit. So like honestly, when you break it down, as excited as I was for it, I kind of hope moving forward that they do something to change what they're actually doing compared to Marvel. That was my opinion of it. I really enjoyed it, especially compared to the dog shit we got with Suicide Squad and other past DC iterations. So this one definitely brought me back on the DC side, and I'm excited to see what they do from here. So I'm going to give it 8.5 out of 10.
Let me preface this by saying I've always preferred the DC movies over the Marvel movies just because I felt like the DC tone was more set in reality. If this was actually going on in our world, it would be dark, and that is exactly what the DC movies are. My main takeaways are, number one, damn, did Warner Brothers screw this all up from the beginning?
Yep.
Where do you go from here? Like, this is now one of their best reviewed movies, something that probably would have made at least double the money that the Whedon cut would have made. And now you're kind of like sitting here just thinking to yourself, like, what do we do now? Like, everyone's pretty much said that they're done, and in the sense of like Zack Snyder and Batfleck. So like, where do you go from here? You do Flashpoint, and then everything that they've kind of set up in the epilogue is done. What the hell? I'm really happy for Zack Snyder. He got to flesh out his vision, and not only did he flesh out his vision, but he also listened to the fans and the complaints. And I honestly feel like he fixed probably like 90% of them with this cut. The CGI was so much better. The redesign of a lot of the characters did not seem as cartoonish, which was definitely a huge plus. Zack Snyder obviously is not a director that shies away from violence, and to see it like turned up a notch for a true superhero movie that was not Deadpool was honestly cool to see. I felt like it still kind of remained grounded in the sense that, yeah, there was blood splatter, but it wasn't like all up in your face like it was with his Sin City movies. The whole decapitation of Steppenwolf from Wonder Woman was
awesome.
so
that was fucking great.
Well done and just totally badass. It was totally worth it to go for the R rating just for things like that. The Cyborg story, having that actually fleshed out and kind of getting that redemption for Ray Fisher with everything that's been going on with him and WB in the background, it was honestly just, it made me emotional in a sense, just because I feel like of all the crap that's been coming out. His cyborg character itself, like I feel like was what was needed in the original Whedon cut for the emotional aspect of the film. Kind of pairing that also with, with the Superman going back to that scene with Lois and was it Martha?
Martha.
Yeah. So the emotional beats in this film were so much more impactful. I'm going to stick with my same Letterboxd score, 9 out of 10. Again, I'm bummed about what this could have been if WB would have handled it well initially, especially with the news that the third Justice League movie was going to have the son of Superman and Lois as Batman. Man, that what a missed opportunity to go into that. That would have been so awesome.
So I'm going to start this off by saying I really, really like this movie. It was awesome. I'm glad it's here, but I didn't walk away loving it. And maybe that's going to have to take like another viewing or two. In my first viewing, I was more so focused on what was different, which was practically everything. But I was more focused on that, like what was different, like the scenes and the action, rather than just the whole package. And it's 4 hours long, so it's a lot to unpack, and it's going to take a few more viewings to, I think, fully appreciate it. You can tell from the very opening frame that it's a completely different movie. It tells you right away, okay, you're in for something completely different. Disregard the 2017 Whedon version. This is the ball game. From there, I'm going to start with my negatives. The minor one is that there's just the Zack Snyder traits, some unnecessary shots here and there, overextended scenes, in particular the bank robbing scene. It's extended with the action and everything, but it was really extended where you see the leader of the terrorist organization. He's kind of walking up the stairs. Like we follow his path all the way up the stairs to like where he holds the hostages. And I just felt like little scenes like that were unnecessary. There were a lot of shots where if you trimmed 5 minutes of that, it would still clock in at like 4 hours with the credits, but the total film runtime would be like 3 hours and 50 to 55 minutes. Number one of what bothered me the most. The slow motion was too much for me, and it started to drive me crazy once it got to the football scene with Ray Fisher's flashback. I felt like the slow-mo really just slowed a lot of scenes down that I feel needed to be better paced. Do we really need to see the suitcase spinning in slow-mo for 30 seconds when Wonder Woman is throwing the bomb up there? Do we really need to see Victor Stone handed off the football in slow motion? We've seen that on ESPN millions of times. We don't need to see it in a movie. And a lot of flashes scenes, like I get it, like when he runs at the speed of light, time slows down. But I feel like, except for the end where he's running around the battle area, the final sequence where he's charging up to try to blow up the box, slowing Flash down for the rest of the movie when he's in action kind of takes away what his true abilities are at the speed of light, if that makes sense. There's that whole scene where he's running to give Wonder Woman her sword. If something like that was sped up and then it just slows down when he points the sword to give it to her, I felt like that would have been more effective. And then the other scene that really bothered me was, in terms of the slow motion, was when he rescues Iris. That scene was cool up until he stopped in the middle of the rescue to grab a hot dog.
It was for the dogs, you asshole.
I know, but still, like, it's supposed to be the serious moment where he meets like the potential love of his life, and he literally stops to rescue her to grab a hot dog. Don't forget that CGI falling sesame seed. That was important too. We had to see that. My other gripe with it, and I'm probably gonna get a lot of shit for this, I could not stand Ezra Miller in this movie. I could not stand him. I feel like his tone for Flash worked better in the Joss Whedon version, because that's Joss Whedon's like humor, like that quippy, witty humor. But in this movie, a lot of the jokes that he made in this version were the same from the 2017 cut. And then the new ones didn't really land for me. And I just felt like a lot of the scenes that had like a serious tone, for some reason, there just had to be an immediate comic relief from him, which I felt wasn't necessary. And when I see Ezra Miller, to me, he doesn't scream the Flash. He doesn't scream Barry Allen to me. I didn't really dig it this time around. So
I gotta agree with you there, Callan, because I don't know about you guys, but I watched the CW's Flash. And to be honest, Grant Gustin is Barry Allen to me. He captures Barry Allen and the Flash perfectly. And while we've given Ezra Miller his shot at the Flash and Barry Allen, I agree with you 100%. He doesn't capture it for me. He's comparable to the many attempts of Jared Leto as the Joker. Like, he's gonna keep trying until he gets it right. But to me, he's still not the real Barry Allen.
This movie has me psyched for the potential story of the Flash movie, but it doesn't have me psyched for him as the Flash. To echo what all you guys said, Ray Fisher finally got the respect that he and his character deserved. His performance and story was outstanding to watch, and it kind of reminded me of the storyline of Dr. Manhattan, where And even though he's not in the movie a whole lot, Jeremy Irons I thought was perfect in this film. I still want more of his Alfred, and he arguably has some of the best dialogue in this movie, and probably has the best line of this entire film that was shown in the trailer, where he says something like, "If you can't face a charging bull, don't wave the red cape at it." That is an awesome line, and he stole every scene that he was in. And I felt like if they were going to have more of the comic relief aside from Flash, it should have been with Alfred, because he's kind of known to have like that witty British humor. So the epilogue was probably the chef's kiss moment for me, the extended Deathstroke scene and what that sets up. And that was like the one moment where I actually didn't mind Jesse Eisenberg being Lex Luthor. Like it was tolerable, that scene.
Oh, so you mean the weird eccentric psycho look isn't a good Lex Luthor move?
No.
Yeah, when did Lex Luthor start doing crack?
Too much Red Bull. The nightmare scene between Joker and Batman was fucking awesome. I wouldn't go as far as what people were saying it's the best interaction between him and Batman of all time, but it was pretty damn good. And the fact that we just get Batman saying straight to Joker's face, "I'm gonna fucking kill you," was awesome.
That was awesome.
Yeah,
although and I will say, like, I like the interaction, but I still didn't like Jared Leto's Joker.
No, he's got to go, dude.
Like, I still didn't care for his Joker at all. Like,
he's the weakest of all the Jokers.
Yeah, like, I don't know, like figure something out. He's gotta, I don't know.
I thought it was more tolerable, like more watchable, but I didn't like what was that laugh? You know, like
the cackle.
Yeah, he sounded like a cat getting shot by a crossbow. I mean, I don't know.
He's trying so hard not to sound like
Heath Ledger.
Yeah, I feel like he's trying to stray away from that.
Yeah,
but I gotta say, I was really happy to see Martian Manhunter.
Yeah, that was going to be my next point. Yeah,
that was a really good reveal. Like, finally, we got him in. I was hoping to see Jon Stewart as Green Lantern, but
we saw some sort of Green Lantern at the beginning.
Yeah, that was cool.
Too. Yeah.
That whole action sequence, that whole war sequence, was another highlight for me. Where, that was a great sequence.
There was an interview that Snyder did that originally Martian Manhunter was actually supposed to be Jon Stewart, but DC actually said that he can't have Jon Stewart because I'm assuming it's because they're doing the Green Lantern show. So they
Yeah.
have a reveal for something like that. So
I read that too.
that close.
Sons
Yeah.
of bitches.
Yeah. Overall, the Justice League film, it's what we got, and it's what we as fans deserved. And I'm happy for Zack Snyder that he got to complete his vision. I wish Warner Brothers would stop being such, to put it frankly, assholes towards their creatives and their filmmakers and just stop interfering. It makes you really question at this point that I think DC needs to start their own studio, much like Marvel has already done, and they just need to find a more reliable parent company to just fund them the money. And I'm sure his late daughter, Autumn, who he dedicated this film to, would be proud of him as well. But I'm going to stick with what I gave it on Letterboxd, 4.5 stars out of 5, which on our rating scale in the show, for me, that's a 9.5 out of 10. The negatives or the positives significantly outweigh the negatives I stated. So I'm happy that it's here, and I can't wait to watch it again.
I'm gonna correct you though. That's a 9 out of 10.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Sorry. The math was bothering me. All right, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Disney Plus has given us some new MCU shows. So we're tailing off WandaVision here into Falcon and the Winter Soldier, picking right up off of Endgame's tail. So let's hear it. Patrick, what did you think about Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Can I just say I am absolutely blown away with the production value that they're putting into the show. You couldn't really tell as much with WandaVision just because it was way more character based. With this, I mean, where are they getting the money from? It's nuts. Like, there's no box office, it's straight up subscriptions. So the scene where Falcon's flying through the canyons and stuff like that was so incredibly well done. I'm excited to see where this goes, just because it looks like we're also going to get a character study on both of them, of like how they are going to be trying to adjust to a somewhat normal life. You know, it's pretty interesting to see, like, bringing up the whole point when they're at the bank with trying to get a loan, like, how are they, like, yeah, how are these dudes getting paid? Like, what's their income? It's all stuff I feel like we've never really talked about or thought about in superhero movies. So the whole the dating aspect for Winter Soldier, like, how's that gonna go? Looks like the action's gonna be great, and obviously that giant reveal at the end with Wyatt Russell's character as the new Captain America. Holy shit. I had no idea that was gonna happen. Is he legit gonna be the new Captain America going forward? Like, did they shoot him up with the super soldier serum? If WandaVision is any indication, any theories that we come up with right now, they're all going to be wrong. Very strong opening episode for me. I'm going to go 8 out of 10.
So that first 10 minutes was absolutely awesome. That action sequence, I mean, what a way to start off like a new show. Brings a lot back to the Winter Soldier, which was such a cinematic achievement in a comic book film in terms of like an action film. Just the way that it was entirely coordinated was awesome. So props to whoever came up with that action sequence. You did a phenomenal job. And I like how this is going to really be the beginning of, like you said, Patrick, his case study of how he's adjusting to the world, because we obviously saw that with Cap in the movies, but with Bucky, we never really got that because, you know, he got thrown into the Winter Soldier, then he got uncorrupted, if that's even a word, and he gets thrown into the bout in Civil War, and then he has to go fight a war to save the entire galaxy. So, and now we finally get to see him just adjust to normal life 100 years later. And so I think that's going to be really interesting to unfold. It's really hard to deny Anthony Mackie's charisma as Falcon. He's such a complex character, but yet he's always out there just trying to help people, and he carries on that legacy that Steve Rogers had of just being there for people. It's going to be really interesting to see how, much like Bucky, he's adjusting to normal life, helping out his sister with her fishing business. And then to close out that reveal, I kind of figured that was going to happen. Then again, that was slightly spoiled for me, like on the internet with the new Captain America coming out. I think it's going to have that political commentary of what is it going to take for somebody like Sam, and by that I mean a black man, to really get the mantle and recognition he deserves as a hero. Because of course he made the choice to say, this is not my shield, but then they just kind of slap him in the face with it and be like, all right, well, if you're not going to do it, we're going to give it to another white guy, So I think that's going to be a really important element of the story going forward. I think this was actually a perfect pilot, and I don't say that often about shows, so I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. I can't wait to see the rest of this. Yeah, I love this.
So I've been really chomping at the bit to get more Bucky, because I love Winter Soldier. I used to read some of those Winter Soldier comics too. And I also love the relationship between Falcon and Winter Soldier that they've so far put up in the MCU. I think it's a real Will Smith, Martin Lawrence type relationship, which I think the MCU has been really needing another like buddy type set of characters like that. Watching just that intro sequence of him, like Patrick said, flying through the canyons and stuff like that, it was beautiful. It was perfect. It was well shot. It was everything that I would have expected from a Marvel movie, not a show.
Mm-hmm.
And where are they getting this money? And I understand Marvel and Disney have got some deep pockets, but they're putting like movie level money into these shows, and it's incredible because it's paying off in such a great way. And man, I cannot wait to see what they're going to do with Bucky, especially because in the comics, they both become Captain America at one point or another. So now that we've got 3 potential candidates to be Captain America is really exciting, especially because he's been, deprogrammed. He's not obviously carrying around this tremendous amount of guilt. I mean, with his list, instead of, knocking people off, he's trying to make amends, which I think is really great. There's already a theme kind of going on with Phase 4 where this is more Phase 3, but Peter Parker doesn't want to carry the mantle being the next Iron Man. Whereas, Falcon and Bucky both don't want to be Captain America because Iron Man is Iron Man and Cap is Cap, and they don't know if they can fill those shoes, which I think is great because it even shows that even the most powerful people can still question themselves. Having the new Cap, or as I believe it's just U.S. agent, coming in right off the bat, I think it's real exciting because it's already building that turmoil and it's just gonna get better. Personally, I'm gonna go with the 10 out of 10. It was perfect. I loved it every second of it.
I really enjoyed it. I like to see the tone that it's setting. It's obviously very different tone compared to WandaVision. What I like that Disney Plus is doing with their shows is that we're getting these characters in these 8 to 10 hour segments in their own personality. With this one, obviously, we're dealing with like PTSD, guilt, and living up to expectations, where I feel like WandaVision was grief and like coming to terms with reality. And you mentioned Spider-Man, so it like instantly made me think of Uncle Ben. From this point, seeing what Marvel's doing with Phase 4, it's that pure slogan of with great power, which what we saw in the first 3 phases, great power. And then now Phase 4 and forward is going to be the great responsibility part. So like we've seen all these people deal with their powers and figure them out. And now I feel like it's actually them having to deal with the repercussions of having those powers and what they're doing to the world. I like how we are seeing instantly Captain America's old villains. So we got George St. Pierre back as the Leaper. He's still clearly alive after episode 1, so I feel like he's going to be coming back again. And then I like how we saw Rhodey. So that's clearly setting up their Armor Wars show that they got coming up, which is going to be obviously the fallout of Tony Stark compared to the fallout of Steve Rogers here in this show. I like the tone. I like the military aspect of it and how we're getting into the aftermath of what happens after Captain America is gone. Clearly, the whole premise of the show is going to be stopping the fake Captain America and how the country moves forward. Because obviously Hydra is still around. So I think that's going to be the same ass thing that they're going to be doing. So I'm excited to see what they do moving forward here. I'm going to give it 8 out of 10 just because I liked where they started, and the only way to go up is from here.
And thank you, Disney Plus, for finally giving us an hour-long show.
For real. That's what I'm like. These better all be an hour. Like, it better not be 22 minutes the next one. So going into that, we're going to segue straight into our WandaVision season finale review. It's been a while since we talked about it, and this is obviously setting up plenty for the MCU future. So, Callan, let's hear it. What did you think about WandaVision's season finale, and where do you think it's leading off into this MCU?
Overall, I thought it was a really solid ending. You know, I've been critical of the show from the start, but I really liked how this show defied fan expectations. At first, it bothered me when I watched the final episode and like none of the theories were true, but I was okay with it. In the end, this was Wanda's story and in some ways Vision's story. I thought the final battle sequence was really well done. It was a very safe kind of cookie cutter Marvel film final action sequence, but it worked. I liked the throwdown between her and Agatha. Fuck that Crimson Chin asshole who almost shot their kids. I mean, Jesus Christ. At first I was bummed, like, okay, well, we didn't get the super secret cameo that everybody was talking about. You know, we didn't get the Fantastic Four, John Krasinski thing, but you know, that's fine. That's for a different day. So I give the episode like a solid 8 out of 10. And then as a show, probably an 8.5 out of 10.
This wasn't my favorite episode. I mean, it's definitely one of the top half. I didn't care so much for the action. I thought it was very over the top. I cared more for the emotional beats of the episodes. Just seeing them fight as a family, I thought was really cool. Her letting go at the very end as she's putting her, you know, the perimeter's moving towards them slowly. They're putting the kids to bed and then they have to say goodbye, and concept of grief that this whole show really talks about. Like, she's coming to terms with that. It's a good episode. I'm going to go 8.5 out of 10.
It's definitely one of the stronger episodes. The series is definitely a big slow burn. The final fight sequence was cool. I don't know if it was like the coolest fight sequence ever, throwing energy balls at each other, basically. Disappointed that Paul Bettany kind of led us on a wild goose chase. Once again, Vision had some of the most profound lines in the whole show, just like he did in Ultron. Overall, I think both show, episode, and series as a whole, I'll give it a solid 8 out of 10.
I was honestly a real big fan of this finale. My favorite episode of the whole season, just because I like how everything paid off. My least favorite scene was that final fight, how we got the reveal of like the spells she put around, like how she learned from her opponent. I was hoping they'd go more into like an actual like witch fight. Like, I like how they started that episode off, like when you get the dream sequence, Wanda doing her classic like mind control thing, Agatha coming back at her. They should have done more than that, as opposed to always resorting to just shooting laser beams at each other. Such a Marvel cop-out. Of course they did that shit.
Yeah.
My favorite scene, when she was coming to terms with how she did mind control the whole city. Once they started getting in her face about it, she straight up Darth Vader force choked all of those motherfuckers. Like, that to me was crazy, and like showed like her true power and like her true nature. Agatha told her the Scarlet Witch is forged. So that means Wanda has no control of like who she is or what she is. Like, someone made her. She is a spell. I don't know if it's going to be Mephisto like everyone's talked about, Dormammu. Someone read in that book and did everything they needed to in order to make Scarlet Witch happen, and she's supposed to be the end of the world. I'm really excited for that horror aspect of it. So I feel like Marvel just really opened up like a horror section for what they're about to do, and setting her up for like the big bad in like phase 4. We always just have random villains that are just pissed off at something, but we've never seen someone that went from a villain to a hero to the villain again. The series in total, I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our weekly recommends. My weekly recommend is actually a household appliance. We got it this week, and it's made cooking with a baby a lot easier and more delicious. It is the Ninja Foodie SP101 air fryer / convection oven. That thing is awesome. It flips up so it doesn't take up as much counter space, and everything tastes delicious. So the Ninja Foodie SP101.
Big facts. I got that.
You got that too?
Oh, of course, got that. It's awesome. Love it. My weekly recommendation is a show. Superman and Lois. So it's definitely CW meets the Snyder cut. It's really well done, really character driven. There's a lot of cool stuff, obviously, with Superman flying around and finally seeing Superman peak of his powers. He knows what to do. He's flying around. He's super fast, using cold breath. It's a different version of Superman than we've seen before. He now has 2 teenager sons. One's named after his human father, and one's named after his Kryptonian father. One of his sons now has powers, figuring out how to be a superhero and being a dad, tonally wise, close to Man of Steel.
I'm going to recommend a movie I watched the other week. It's on Hulu. It's directed by Joe Carnahan. He did the A-Team movie with Liam Neeson, Rampage. It's called Boss Level with Frank Grillo. Fun little 90-minute action film. It kind of takes off that idea of, it's a roguelike. He's in a death loop. Basically, Joe Carnahan took the idea of like when you're in a video game, you're trying to get to that boss, but you keep dying on the way there, or you keep dying against the boss. It like takes that idea. So it's very video game inspired. It's a good Saturday night movie, and you just want to turn your brain off, 90 minutes. If you guys have not watched Titans, that was formerly on the DC universe, start watching that, because if you want to stick with the darker tone of DC, that's a good addition to the palette there for you. It's basically the Teen Titans grown up, and it's a very adult-oriented show. It is not for children. If you like the Snyderverse, the Snyder tone, you will love Titans. And season 3 is on the way, hopefully by the end of this year. So Boss Level, Titans. There you go.
Hell yeah. Fuck Batman. My weekly recommend is a horror comedy called Freaky with Vince Vaughn and Catherine Newton. Produced by Jason Blum, directed by Christopher Landon from the Happy Death Day movies. This whole movie is basically, think of Friday the 13th and Freaky Friday put together, and that's exactly what it is. If you thought Jack Black played a funny teenage girl, honestly, Vince Vaughn took the cake of playing a teenage high school girl. End of it, you forget that he's the murderer and you feel bad. You're just like, oh, no, I liked him. Fun new take on those type of movies, and it's a good waste of an hour and a half if you got it. So that's my recommend. Freaky.
We all know that Rob Schneider plays the best teenage girl from The Hot Chick.
That's true. Thanks for joining us, y'all. Like, subscribe. Let us know what you think. The nerds have been heard. Court is adjourned.
Deuces.
Get the fuck out of here.